Good evening and welcome to our second Tuesday showcase. I apologize for not being on camera. My camera has decided to be tired and not work today. So the joys of technology. I am Chandra. I am glad that we are here. Our event is going to be warming up the community one table at a time. Our goal is to share some of the issues that we all have in this community, whether it's issues finding food because you live in a food desert or because you don't have the means to be able to get food that you need. Housing is an issue. Colorado Springs housing market has gotten very large, as most of us know, I'm sure. And so we're hoping to talk about that some tonight. And then we're also going to talk to somebody from Community Partnership for Child Development. And we're going to discuss, helping our youngest children come up through poverty and hit an educated spot where hopefully they can afford to live here. And then we'll also share some different pieces that can help you if you are struggling. So just a big, wide open table tonight, and we're glad you're here with us.
So really quick, I'm going to just run you through a few functions that you'll see on your screen so that you can participate in tonight's event. If you would like to speak during one of our kind of open discussions during the breakout or towards the end of the evening, all the way on the left, the bottom of your screen, you will see the option to unmute. You also can, share your video right next to that where it says start video if you would like to do that this evening. There is the option to chat using that chat function down at the bottom as well. And then when we go into breakout rooms, there's 4 little squares that say breakout rooms, and that's how you will go into the breakout room. And then if you would like to react to something that you see, you can use that reactions button. And then to leave the meeting, of course, press that big red leave at the end of the evening. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat to let us know.
Most of our events, we do a small discussion in the main room. And so you will hear a little bit about each of our presenters in the main room. And then when we go to our breakout rooms, you will hear a more specialized topic about their business and why they have been invited to join us tonight. And then we will come back into our main room and finish up the evening. Tonight's moderator is Stephanie Vigil. She should be no stranger to most of us here. She is the House District Chair currently for House District 16 and is now a filed state candidate for that same House District. And we are excited to have her leading this tonight because she also knows firsthand how hard it is to take care of things here in Colorado Springs. So I am glad to introduce her. Stephanie, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Again, my name is Stephanie Vigil. I'm on our executive committee here with the county party as well for the time being. And I'm really excited to introduce some of the panelists we have. So we're going to be going over some things like Chandra said about meeting our needs throughout the community. And I think I don't know if we have the next slide up so that I can proceed, but we have a few folks for you. Thank you. So representing the organization Food to Power, Slade Custer is here. We were actually just talking before the program how much of a parallel there is here because Slade is from here, but left for a while and really began to fall in love with Colorado Springs coming back. So Food to Power it provides all kinds of, fills in a lot of gaps for food necessity for people who need it. And he will be telling you a lot more about that. Our next panelist is Sorry, I did not read these enough ahead of time to have them memorized. I need a clicker.
If Slade wants to start, we'll come back to the next presenter.
Oh, okay.
So a little brief overview of Food to Power. Yeah, so basically, like, our mission statement is to cultivate a healthy, equitable food system here in Colorado Springs. There are several neighborhoods throughout the city that were intentionally, in the development of the city, were intentionally overlooked when it came to implementing food distributors, especially as some of the larger conglomerates came in, like Safeway, King Supers, Walmart Neighborhood Market, things like that. And due to like certain tax reasons and whatnot, certain neighborhoods actually don't have access to traditional food distributors. So that's one of those where we're trying to go into communities, work to implement community-based food systems, and try to get fresh and perishable produce, once again focusing on the fresh and perishable side instead of just pre-canned goods, stuff like that, trying to get that in the hands of community members who are in need of it, teaching them how to cook it, and as well as some other program that kind of encompasses the whole food cycle. But yeah, you'll hear all about that in the breakout rooms.
All right, and our next panelist is Lori Johnson, a family advocate with Cpcd. Lori's been in the human services education field since 1988 in Colorado Springs. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to her to tell you a bit more about that.
Hey, my name is Lori. Good evening. I am a family advocate, and that is the department that serves the families of the kiddos that are enrolled in our program. CPCD stands for Community Partnership for Child Development, and we serve kiddos from 0 to 5. Looking forward to the breakout.
All right, and last but not least, Max Cronstadt with the Colorado Springs Pro Housing Partnership. I've seen Max do a lot of incredible work in this community with, especially at a city level, with things that are not generally very exciting to people, like zoning and ADUs and all kinds of acronyms. So Max, if you want to tell people a bit about that before we break out.
Sure. So hey everyone, glad to be with you. I'm Max. I'm co-founded and now run the Colorado Springs Pro Housing Partnership. And our goal is to build a coalition that can push our city government to adopt policies that will make housing more affordable in our community. I think it's no secret that housing is really unaffordable in our community right now. And so for the past 2.5 years, we've been focused primarily on zoning issues. And zoning is often something that people think of as kind of boring, arcane, unimportant, and it can be certainly those first two things, but it has a huge impact on the affordability of housing in our city. So excited to talk more with all of you about that in our breakout rooms.
All right. And then what do we do next from here? Do you have a tech explanation for us, Ultra?
Yep. So Chandra's shifting everyone into breakout sessions right now. So in just a moment, you'll see a room invite pop up on your screen. Go ahead and click join in order to enter that room. Once you've entered, please unmute, turn on your video. This is a chance for you to sit at a small table and talk to our presenters and go over and have small group discussions with everybody else in the room. We were going to be moving the presenters from one space to the other. So once you've been moved into a room, you'll stay there for the evening and your presenter will change. It just makes it easier for us than trying to shift all of the people here, as well as it gives us the opportunity for each presenter to be on our live streaming side and recording side, because we can only do that in our main room. Have open discussions. Please be nice to each other. That's what we're here for, is to build more community. If you need to leave the room for any reason, bottom right-hand side of your screen will have a leave room button. That'll take you back out to the main room. And then from there, you can leave the meeting. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you guys back here in about 45 minutes.
And in our main room, we have Slade. So Slade, if you want to go ahead and bring up your slides, you are in the main room to start.
Give me half a second. Okay, sweet. Can you guys see everything good? Can see the PowerPoint? Hear me all right? Everything's good to go?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. So once again, I work with Food to Power, and right at the bottom of the slide, you'll notice that it says formerly Colorado Springs Food Rescue. So we were started in 2013 by a group of Colorado College students, actually, working to reduce food waste from local food distributors. And actually in January of this year, we conducted a full-scale rebrand because we found that the thing that was kind of naming and encompassing our entire organization was actually one part of one program of one of our 3 pillars of integrated programming underneath the whole organization. So after a long process, we landed on the name Food to Power, and yeah, we rebranded successfully in January. So that being said, I just briefly mentioned that we had 3 different pillars of integrated programming. So those namely are food access, food production, and food education. So all 3 of these uniquely tie in to provide programming that encompasses the entire food cycle and to help us complete our mission of trying to cultivate a healthy and equitable food system here in Colorado Springs. And so real quick, when I say the entire food cycle, what I'm meaning there is you're looking at the growing of food, you're looking at the accessing and the consumption of food, but then something that often gets overlooked is what happens with those food scraps once you're done eating them. And so we actually have a composting social enterprise, a revenue generating program for our organization that composts those food scraps, returns the nutrients back to the soil so that we can have nutrient rich soil that we can begin to start the entire process back over with and start to grow food and help people access it again. So our first integrated pillar of programming is the food access department. And so there are 3 primary programs that make up this department. The first is the no cross grocery program. So when I first mentioned that the kind of flagship program of this organization and how it started out, that was the no cross grocery program. So look at it this way. You have a food distributor, say for example, Whole Foods, and they get in a big shipment of green beans and then they sell half of those green beans, but then they get in another shipment. They're not going to keep selling those old green beans, even though they're still good to eat. So instead of that just being thrown in the waste bin and left to rot in landfills, which produces greenhouse gases, we are actually going to those food distributors using a just-in-time direct redistribution model where we're having volunteers pick up that food, take it to pre-existing community infrastructure like community centers, churches, trailer home parks, things like that. And they're distributing that food often within an hour or 2 of it even being picked up. And so that was one of those instrumental things where during COVID and during 2020, we redistributed over 1.2 million pounds of fresh produce to the local community at no cost. Another project or another program that kind of popped up within this department during the COVID pandemic was Savvy Seniors. So Savvy Seniors works to deliver food to vulnerable populations, specifically seniors. So when COVID pandemic hit, there was a lot of concern due to seniors being a higher risk group to contracting the virus. There was a lot of seniors who were being self-isolated, couldn't go to the grocery store. A lot of like the farmers markets around town temporarily closed down. So we partnered with Savvy Seniors so that we could deliver pre-prepared boxes of food to their doorstep at no cost to them. And so this is a little bit different than like Meals on Wheels, for example, because Meals on Wheels is often pre-prepared meals that are dropped off, but this is boxes of fresh ingredients, nutrient-rich ingredients that are then delivered to these seniors so they can cook the meals that they want to. And then in addition, this program wouldn't be possible without the partnerships. I mean, we partner with over 60 organizations across town. Once again, I was mentioning that pre-existing community infrastructure that we use to distribute this food. And so, everything from churches to community centers to mobile home parks around town. There really is a wide variety or widespread of different organizations that we're delivering food so that we can cut out that barrier to transportation and deliver this food and host these food deliveries in the heart of under-resourced communities, so that if you don't have access to a vehicle, for example, you don't have to worry about food access because we're utilizing stuff near your home. And so that kind of wraps up our first department, food access. The next one is food production. And so food production, the primary program was Soil Cycle, which was started in 2018. Soil Cycle, along with our rebrand from Colorado Springs Food Rescue to Food to Power, Soil Cycle also rebranded to Food to Power Compost. So Soil Cycle is a social enterprise. And when I say social enterprise, I mean it is an organization, or it's a program that actually generates revenue for the nonprofit. So it increases our financial diversity and it makes us more financially stable. So the services that Food to Power Compost offers is that is the city's first residential compost pickup service. If you live kind of in like the Hillside neighborhood, downtown area, we can do pickup service. But if you live outside of that area, we actually utilize several community gardens to host compost drop-offs. And so if you're a part of Food to Power Compost, it's a sliding scale payment model because we really try our hardest to reduce barriers to access for all of our programs, and that comes with financial barriers. So for example, if you're tight on cash, but you're really passionate and you want to compost, you can pay $0 for the fee every month. That's just kind of one of those where if, for example, you have some more disposable income, we just ask that you might try to pay it forward. So by dropping off your compost or your food scraps, getting them picked up, you also qualify for free compost givebacks, where we actually give some of the treated soil back to you so you can use it in your houseplants or your garden. We also work on distributing compost tea, which is the black syrupy liquid that is emitted from compost when it's formed. And that is the most microbiotic, nutrient-rich, naturally occurring compound in the world. It's literally the best fertilizer, and it's crazy when you add it to plants. It just like makes them explode. And so that kind of wraps up food production. Our last integrated pillar is food education. So we try to incorporate educational elements into all facets of the organization. For example, we have look, for example, at Hillside neighborhood. The average household income in that neighborhood is $31,075. And a third of neighborhood residents don't have access to a vehicle. And the nearest grocery store in a 3-mile radius is 7-Eleven. So say, for example, you fit into that demographic and you've been eating convenience store diet for several years. You might not even necessarily know what to do with fresh produce if you got your hands on it. So that's one where we work to educate people and host cooking classes and teach people how to cook with this fresh produce that we're distributing to them. Same thing with the composting. We do a lot of composting sessions where we'll have people meet at the community gardens and we'll teach them the different parts of composting, what kind of microbiotic nutrients are in it and stuff like that. But specifically with food education, we have 3 different programs right now that it hosts. The first one is Teach for Teachers. So we have a program where we say, for example, you're a community member and you have something you'd want to share, whether it's knowledge of using vinegar to can things and on food preservation, whether it's culturally appropriate recipes with native foods that are grown and thrive here in Colorado. You can actually become a certified educator and teach the community education sessions to community members. And once again, talking about removing barriers to access, specifically that financial barrier, those education classes are for a cost, but it's once again a sliding scale. So if you're tight on money and you really want to learn how to use vinegar to preserve your garden, you can access that at no cost. Once again, it's just one of those where we ask that if you can't afford it, pay a little bit more. Another one is Community Corner. So on the last Saturday of every single month, we have a pop-up stand at our Saturday no-cost grocery program distribution out of our hub offices. And we have, just a variety of like recipes that are taught, things like that. So like, for example, the one that's up on this Saturday is for recipes around the holiday season. I think it's like a little, almost like a boa bun, but it's like, yeah, pumpkin filling on the inside, and yeah, it's delicious. But so that's another program. And then the last one, actually, the flagship program for food education is the Fly Internship. So this is a paid high school internship. It used to be hosted out of Atlas Prep, but then we withdrew, and we now host it at like our hub location, so that we can access, kind of provide the service to high school students from around the city. That's one where we provide gas vouchers for families if they're income based and they qualify for those, because we would hate for barrier to transportation to reduce someone's ability to access the service. But once again, it's a paid high school internship where they're learning about the local food system, the food inequities that are going on. And then in addition to, the interns will break off into groups and work with one of the departments in Food to Power, so that they can start developing a lot of those like soft skills, those employable skills, those 21st century skills. So that kind of wraps up those three main integrated pillars of programming. And so this is very, very exciting. So this is the Hillside Hub. So I don't know if any of you guys know where like the Hillside Gardens are at, but right at the end of that cul-de-sac is an open plot of land. And for 5 years, we've been working on the development of this building, which that is a picture from about a week ago. So it's like up and coming. So the Hillside Hub is the city's first neighborhood food center. And once again, it's over 5 years in the making. We originally partnered with El Paso County to conduct the county's first food systems assessment. So basically what we were doing was we were going door to door, we were canvassing, we were going throughout tons of neighborhoods in Colorado Springs to try to identify the 4 neighborhoods that face the highest barriers to fresh food access. And from that study came out the following 4 neighborhoods: Deerfield Hills, Meadow Park, Nob Hill, and Hillside neighborhood. So then based off of those findings, that's kind of where we started integrating a lot of our programming. But so when we were looking at the Hillside Hub, and once again, going back to the statistics I mentioned earlier, that's one of those where we began doing a lot of community convenings. We started canvassing, finding out truly what the community wanted the space to be. So we spent 3 years finding out what it wanted it to be. And then after we knew what the community wanted the space to be, then we did the capital campaign. Then we did groundbreaking and construction. So it's going to open in February of 2022. And yeah, it's going to increase our ability to, try to create a healthy and equitable food system. So there are a few ways to get involved. You can always become a program participant. You can always volunteer, and you can always contribute financially. But with that being said, there's about a couple minutes left. So I definitely want to answer any questions if you all have any. Thank you for listening to me talk about Food to Power.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you get more involved? What does it look like to try to get more involved?
Yeah, so I mean, there's 3 different ways. I kind of brushed over these fast. But so first of all, you can always become a program participant. You can always access food at no cost. You can compost your food scraps, and you can learn relevant and affording cooking tips. In addition, we are volunteer driven. The food that we pick up from food distributors, that's volunteers who are picking that food up. It's volunteers in communities who are helping with the food distributions. It's volunteers who are delivering that food to the seniors. In addition, there is some sweat equity on the Hillside Hub, where we try to have projects on the Hillside Hub construction where we tap into the local community and have people come and volunteer on the work to try to build that community buy-in. And then even beyond the volunteering and accessing the programs, there's always, nonprofits are always in need of more cash. So you can always attend or contribute financially. I will say that one really exciting thing is we have our annual fundraiser actually this Saturday from 4 to 7 at the Hillside Hub. And so that's one of those where if any of you would like to attend, I can definitely send ticket links. Tickets are $50, but once again, I mentioned that whole thing of reducing barriers to access. And so we have 50% off tickets and 100% off tickets if that is needed. And I can give you a community code for those. But yeah, I would say beyond like program participant, volunteering, and contributing financially. And the date for that event is this Saturday, the 13th from 4 to 7 p.m. And that'll actually be at the Hillside Hub, like in the shell of the building. It'll provide a really, unique opportunity to kind of see everything that's going on with that construction, and hear the narrative around that project, how it came to be, and the impact it'll help make.
Awesome. Can you share that link with us after we get back in the full group so that we've got that link?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, fantastic. I will now be moving speakers. So if you'll give me just a moment, I will move you to the next room.
Thanks, Slade. This is Ultra.
Yeah,
I'll be in touch. I live at Institute in Cimarron, so you're literally down the street from me.
Oh, how exciting. Okay, yeah.
You still have the space at the school?
At Atlas Prep?
No, at Hillside.
Oh,
at
Hillside,
Helen
yeah,
Hunt.
yeah, Helen Hunt. Yeah. No,
That's still the
where
indoor?
Yeah, that's where we're at. And then in February, when the Hillside Hub opens, we'll be officially transitioning out of that full time into the Hillside Hub.
All right, Slade, I'm moving you to room 1.
Okay.
Okay, and in this room we have Max here. So Max, you're welcome to go ahead and start.
Awesome. Well, so in the last group, go ahead and share my screen here. Oops. I had been hoping that, we could have a little bit more of a discussion, and then I could get into some of the more policy details later on. And we ended up taking pretty much the whole time just on this discussion. So I'd love to still try it, but if we could just move a little bit quicker, and then we can get into a discussion about zoning and how that impacts our neighborhoods. But I just kind of like to hear about where people live and how they feel about their neighborhood, because I think it's good to ground this conversation about our built environment, our social geography, in our lived experiences in our neighborhoods. So I currently live in the Patty Jewett neighborhood. I've lived here for about 4 months. I like that there's some variety in housing types, which I notice definitely means more diversity of people. We've got a duplex across the street, and then some more established homeowners down the block. And so that, adds some diversity in terms of who can live in the neighborhood. I like that it's somewhat walkable. You can walk it's close enough to downtown. There are some local businesses, although some of the streets that we have, cars go too fast, and they're definitely built around cars, and that makes it feel less safe. And I think that this neighborhood is getting quite expensive. I live with 4 roommates in a 4-bedroom house, and so if I think about if my roommates were kids instead of roommates, then all of a sudden that would become very, very difficult. Or if I was between jobs, or so I think that it can be difficult for people to have access to this neighborhood. So if other people want to share, and then we can get into a conversation about zoning real quick and plug in my computer.
Did you want to call on people, or Sandra should go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I
Sandra.
just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Sandra Alexander, and basically I'm new to the area. I moved in here a year ago. I'm at Sand Creek Cottages, and I don't know a lot of people in the area. I moved from Denver. But anyway, the only thing I noticed since I've been here, like everywhere else in the country, this area, Colorado Springs, also has an affordability problem very much. So I get a lot of people driving through, and they want to ask you questions. Well, how is it to live there, and can I get in, and that sort of thing. And it's really sad because after living here for a year, the only thing I can tell them is, well, it's not affordable, and it's like every place else. And they're saddened because they have no idea where they're going to go. And just becoming familiar with the neighborhood, I just see a lot of problems and issues. So I'm just trying to learn more about it and find out what I can do.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing, Chandra. Thanks for sharing. Stephanie, you want to go next?
I currently live in the Rustic Hills area, but I just moved here from Village 7. So either way, about like east and central east Colorado Springs. They still call it east for some reason. I am in fact just west of Academy. So, and I, like Max, I have a shared housing situation. So my husband and I actually live with two of my sisters now, because that was really the only way that any of us could afford to have any place to live, is for us to have a multifamily, basically a multifamily household in a rented house. So I do notice in my particular bit of town, and this is true of like Village 7 as well, that a lot of it's like the old suburbs of Colorado Springs. So when the city was still like downtown and what is now the old North End and that sort of thing, like this was like the edge of town, you know, and it's a lot of like post-war ranch style homes. There's still a lot of single family detached, you know, housing here, but it's not so strict and they're not such huge lots with big setbacks that like it feels like suburbia, like if you go out to Banning Lewis or something like that. So it still has a little bit of an old feel to it. There are two bus lines, one that runs down Palmer Park, another that runs down Shelton. And it's actually pretty walkable except for the kind of the scary ways that some people drive on Palmer Park. So sometimes when I see that, I kind of think, well, we were onto something a little bit with how we were growing in the city in this area. And then the farther east and north we got, they were like, just build whatever. So, I can't help but notice that pattern with where I am. Who else hasn't gone? Altra, you want to go next?
Sure. Sorry, I was eating my dinner. I live in Hillside downtown, and I've lived here for 25 years. I actually own my home, luckily. And I don't know, I like it because I can afford it. But this neighborhood has changed so much in the time that I've been here. So I moved here when I was in high school, and I'm now into my 40s. And I have a very small 750 square foot, 100-year-old house. And it's probably the first one on my block that was built. So there's a lot of history in this neighborhood, even though there's like a manufactured house across the street and some older new builds than mine. It's a pretty demographically diverse neighborhood. It's becoming more owners and less renters. There was a lot of renters in the last probably 15 years, and the last 5 years has become more purchased owners because the older generations have died out and their kids either don't want to live here, live elsewhere already, and don't want to move back to the neighborhood, or they, unfortunately, with the economy, see it as a quick money grab to sell a property. Because when I bought my house, it was under $100,000. Now it's over $200,000, and it's just been the last 6 years. Yeah. And the house down the street is not much bigger than mine, sold for a little over $300,000. It's just got upgrades that mine doesn't have. So this neighborhood is getting priced out of being a entry-level neighborhood, when it's always been an entry-level neighborhood, which is why we lived here in the first place when my dad bought the house years ago. So I love being in this downtown area. I'm, 5 minutes from the interstate. I can kind of get anywhere and everywhere from this access point. Memorial Park is 2 blocks away, so we're always close to the community events. I actually grew up in Patty Jewett neighborhood, over by Steele Elementary School. And so that's a whole different demographic in that neighborhood comparatively. But right now, as far as who can live here, it's 2-income households that make a decent living and want to be close to downtown. And it's getting worse with all the apartments that are being built downtown. It's absolutely raising our prices, which is good on the back end, but on the front end of getting, neighbors and people in is very difficult right now. So.
And I think that leaves me, and I currently live in the Villa Loma neighborhood only because I could no longer afford my own rent and had to move back in with my parents at almost 50. So I've lived here now for a year, although to be fair, I lived here in high school when I went to high school here in this area. So it's kind of like coming home, I guess. Well, I mean, that's exactly what it was. I love the walkability of the neighborhood. I love that Safeway is truly next door and I can run there if I need something. Well, I could before COVID. What I don't like living in the neighborhood is that it really is a retired most of the people have owned their home for a long time neighborhood, because buying houses in it now is just not really affordable. And so as far as who has access, really the access is two-person, fairly high-income jobs that have access to living here in this neighborhood. It's mostly single homes and high-priced condominiums. So that's where we are.
Well, thank you all for sharing. So I think now that we've sort of set the stage, I was hearing a lot of our neighborhoods are becoming super unaffordable. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of the main reasons that that is happening locally. So first, sort of zoning. What is zoning? Basically, zoning are a set of laws set by a city or local government that dictate what can be built where. And so there's different kinds of zoning. There's residential zoning, industrial zoning, commercial zoning, mixed use zoning, right? Which say you can either have places that you can live here, or you can have, you know, a chemical plant here. And so some of that is good, right? Because we don't necessarily want our chemical plants plopped down right in the middle of our neighborhoods, and, you know, making our kids sick and that sort of thing. But within residential zoning, we've also have this thing called single family zoning, which you all may be familiar with, which means that we can only build one home per lot, and those lots have to be a certain size. And so right now in Colorado Springs, over 80% of our residential land is zoned for single family use. And so effectively what that does is ban all but the most expensive kind of home, being a single family home, on more than 4/5 of our city land. And so that is driving both the affordability crisis, because we're not adding enough housing to meet increasing demand. We're not adding the diversity of housing types that we need to serve a diverse population. And it's also driving our sprawling city and car-dominated transportation system, because single family zoning requires that we continue to build out and out and out and out and out. And that requires that we build more and more roads. And makes a viable public transportation system very hard to achieve. And so single family zoning was actually created in the 1920s and 1930s as a response to a Supreme Court ruling that outlawed explicitly racially exclusionary zoning. So you could no longer say this neighborhood is for whites only. And single family zoning was promoted by the federal government as a constitutional workaround, as a way to say, you know, if we can't outright ban people of color from moving into this neighborhood, we can at least make it prohibitively expensive for them to buy in. And that's what single family zoning was designed to do. And it is the impact that it continues to have on our cities. Neighborhoods that are zoned for single family use are more expensive, and as a result, less diverse from a racial and socioeconomic perspective. And so it's important to know that history, because as we talk about single family zoning, and obviously people love their single family zoning for plenty of reasons, divorced from that history, but it continues to have the impact that it had when it was first introduced into our cities. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. And so as I've discussed, right, single family zoning is one of the reasons that our housing markets are totally out of control. We are just not building enough housing, when we're not building the right kind of housing. And that is why people are able to sell homes for way, way more than they're worth, are able to charge rent for, you know, a much, much higher rent than they would otherwise be able to get. And it's great if you own land, and it's really difficult if you're a renter, or if you're looking to buy, or if you're just on a fixed income and struggling to keep up with your property taxes. And so the reason that we're talking about this now is because the city of Colorado Springs is currently in a process called Retool COS, which is a comprehensive revision of the zoning code. This is the kind of thing that only happens every 25 to 30 years. So it's a big deal. And it's important that we seize the opportunity to allow more affordable types of housing throughout our city. And so they just finished up with one full draft of a new zoning code. And in a few months, that would go to city council, and city council will be able to debate it and eventually pass a new zoning code. And so what we're asking people to do is to email their city council representatives and let them know we want to see more permitted uses in existing single family zones. That's sort of zoning speak for allowing more housing throughout the city, more affordable types of housing throughout the city. You can talk about your own neighborhood and what's happening in your own neighborhood if that helps. You can talk about any of the things that I talked about in the last couple of minutes, I believe when I put our website in the chat, that went to everybody, but we've got some more information online, some more resources if you'd like to read about zoning and why it's important. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions. I think we have maybe a minute or two left.
You said things are going to city council. How do county commissioners get involved in this? Is this more at the county level for zoning, or do they have a back end to it? Because they're such a problematic group of people as well.
So my understanding is that the county handles zoning for parts of the county that are not within municipal boundaries, but that the zoning in the city of Colorado Springs is ultimately up to the Colorado Springs City Council, and I don't imagine that the county government would have too much to do with it. That's my understanding of how it works. But
I can chime in a little bit. They do have zoning code for the incorporated spaces, but part of the trouble, like Ultra indicated, is that they're a very problematic group of people. They do not work well with Colorado Springs City Council, and so frequently what happens is that when developers want to do something that is not legal in the city of Colorado Springs, they will go get what they want from the county, and they'll just build there, and it's usually just outside of Colorado Springs. And frequently in the past, what they've done is they'll put up the project they want, and this has happened several times, right before they're about to close on the sales for the houses, they'll go, oh, shoot, like we can't meet this requirement or whatever. We don't have this worked out. We're going to need the city to annex this, actually. And so then they get to be in the city after all and benefit from our utilities. So they did sign an IGA recently, an intergovernmental agreement with the city somewhat recently for some of those kinds of annexations. It doesn't do anything for the little islands of unincorporated space, the little enclaves that are enclosed within the city. But at least if they're going to do building permits in the county, in unincorporated El Paso County that's outside of Colorado Springs, they have a much more limited ability to pull those kinds of scams, basically. So.
And I will be
moving. That was like a lot.
I am moving Max now to the next room.
Well, thank you all. This was great.
All right, and welcome, Lori. You are now in the main room.
Okay.
And I think you're muted.
And sorry,
Oops.
I wasn't muted. Okay, good evening. Hi, everybody. So I am Lori. I'm the family advocate for Cpcd, which stands for Community Partnership for Child Development. I can give you a little bit of background on Cpcd. We were founded in 1987, and our most, well-known program that we have is Head Start, the Head Start program. And Head Start was founded a long time ago, back in 1965. Under president, can you guys guess who was president then? Lyndon B. Johnson. Yeah. So, and he created Head Start as part of his war on, I guess, poverty. So that's the reason Head Start kind of came into being, is because those kiddos were not getting the top quality child education, early childhood education. So we started out at CPCD serving 285 children and now serve 1,800 children in 6 different school districts. And I personally work in Harrison D2, are the locations that my families live in, that I work with. So yeah, everything we do kind of centers around that top quality early childhood education and curriculum. We have over 65 classrooms in El Paso County, as far north as D20. And then, you know, we have locations on Fort Carson, Falcon, all over the city. CPCD itself offers numerous programs. I'm in the Family Services Department, so the part of my job is doing home visits, where we set goals and talk about the different parenting workshops and groups that we offer to families. We have an outstanding health and nutrition department that offers all kinds of classes. We allow parents to have leadership opportunities on Policy Council. Policy Council is made up of staff, board of directors, and parents. So they get a chance to kind of do sort of PTO experience, you know, when their kiddos are, you know, before some of their kids might be in elementary school. So they get a taste of what that's like. Our program is completely free. There are different qualifying factors for, you know, eligibility. So for Head Start and Early Head Start, the main qualifier is living at the federal poverty level. And Early Head Start is 0 to 3, and then Head Start is 3 to 5 years of age. Yeah, and then the Colorado Preschool program is another facet of what CPCD has for educational programs, and that one has some different qualifying factors. So it's not totally based on income. It, you know, could be a military family dealing with multiple deployments, could be a kiddo dealing with mental health issues, a parent dealing with mental health issues or addiction, and just adverse childhood experiences or trauma, or, you know, special needs kind of stuff for that program. As part of the resources that I provide to families, you know, food, of course, is a basic need, and we definitely address that at the home visit. And we talk about, you know, food availability for the family, and make sure that they are aware of the nearest food pantry in their neighborhood. CPCD is connected to Care and Share, where we have their mobile food truck in our parking lot. We're going to be having that next week. You can find, you know, out about that on our website or Facebook page, probably. So yeah, and Care and Share is just such an important part of our communities, providing, you know, for that need. So there's utility assistance referrals that I make, the first being the LEAP program, which is the low-income energy assistance program. And they are a federally funded program that helps families in Colorado receive assistance from November through April. Yeah, and the application, I've been told, is pretty easy to complete. You just need to have an account and a social security number. So for some of my undocumented families, that's a challenge, but for everyone with a social security number and an account. You should definitely check that out. And then Project COPE is our other resource that we provide to our families. And the requirements are there with a past due balance, maybe having an emergency situation where your utilities are about to be turned off. So if you qualify for LEAP, you must be approved before applying for Project COPE, if that LEAP assistance is no longer available at the time that you would apply. So, but utilities are definitely something that we talk about, you know, with my families when we visit. So, yeah, there's some great medical resources in Colorado Springs. The top one on my list is Mission Medical, and they offer vision, dental, you name it, gynecology care, all kinds of medical resources that you might need for uninsured people. They're my top referral. So, and also Be Well Counseling is accepts Medicaid and provides a variety of mental health services to children and families, adults and families. If you're interested in helping volunteer or donate to CPCD, there's a way you can do that by going to cpcdheadstart.org. Click on I want to donate or I want to volunteer. They'll provide you some information on how to go about doing that. Again, we are federally funded, but we have to raise 25% of our funds locally to maintain our federal grant. And we actually include parent volunteer time as a way to fund the program. So Head Start recognizes parent engagement and parent involvement to include time reading to their child even as part of our funding. So that's a pretty unique and great way to incorporate the family into their child's education, you know, and the importance of it. We have a holiday program going on right now called Adopt a Family. We have a website open that you can go to where we have family profiles available. So you can read a little bit about a family. We use first names only and that kind of thing, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of what the situation is for that family. And, you know, each one is unique. So you get to kind of decide who you'd like to adopt. And we're accepting gift cards or actual gifts this year. So we did wish lists that you would find on the website for every child and adult in the household for the holidays. We also have an Empty Stocking Fund, which is a community campaign partnered, you know, 19 other agencies are part of that Empty Stocking Fund. So you could go there as well and check that out. You guys have any questions or comments?
Or can you share kind of based on your experience and your families, what do you find is very common thread as to what those families are lacking or needing from their fellow community members?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because my supervisor asks me that a lot at supervision. We're trying to like identify trends and things of that nature. I would say, you know, as far as resources, we have a lot of families, you know, unfortunately, that have difficulty with transportation, cars that break down, and public transportation that is not great. You know, I have families that could walk their child to school faster than the bus, you know, would get them there, and it's still like miles away, the school. So, you know, I feel like transportation is a big issue that I've encountered. You know, being able to work and have the hours of work that coincide with school hours is a challenge for a lot of families. You know, so for some families, the after school hours time, you know, for care is a challenge. Yeah, a variety of things really, and undocumented families face even, you know, their own unique challenges as well. But I would say those, you know, just basic needs, food. A lot of my families are on SNAP. They get WIC. WIC is a fantastic program. We had a presenter come and talk to us about WIC. And, you know, utilities are a big one, just to have that money. And as soon as you don't pay, and the bill just accumulates. So helping with that. I provided a gas card for a family today. So we do have those at times, but, you know, again, going back to transportation, it's very challenging.
How has it worked with the kids needing the education while COVID has happened? Are you guys able to do that online? And what does that look like for parents who can't afford web access or computers and stuff like that?
Yeah. Last year, actually, Chandra, we were providing Chromebooks to families. I wish I knew how many we gave out. It had to be a couple, like 100. I mean, we were really, and then we were trying to make sure our families had the discounted internet, you know, that was available at that time. And yeah, last year was a mess as far as, you know, everybody's education. I had families that had, you know, 4 or 5 kids all online and different times. And, you know, we're expecting them to show up for our session too. I mean, it was just extremely stressful, super, super hard. But we did provide Chromebooks and to at least try and assist them in giving what they needed. We have terrific teachers that were dropping off learning bags door to door. I mean, just the outpouring of effort that was made to reach out and kind of bridge that, you know, I'm pretty proud of the efforts that were made. I was delivering food myself to my families because, again, transportation is a huge issue. So I was going over the West Side Cares Pantry on the West Side at the community center and just bringing food to their door. I mean, that's really what it takes to make sure they were getting what they needed. So this year, I'm super happy to be able to do home visits in person. You know, creating a relationship is just a huge part of what the family advocate position does. You know, and the teachers, you know, creating that connection with the kiddos is, you know, it's just, you know, priceless. It's invaluable. You can't substitute anything for that. So, and in the early Head Start hours, it's Monday through Friday. They're there 7 hours. My program is also a full day for the Head Start. I wish we had more classrooms. They call it extended day. Some classrooms are still a half-day program. So, but they always get either breakfast or lunch. My kiddos get breakfast and lunch while they're there. So, yeah, it's a great. Great resource. I wish we had more classrooms. We talked about that in one of the breakout rooms. But there is a wait list.
Are you, oh, I think we're all done. Are you all over the city, Lori? Or are you
Yes.
focused in?
Yeah, we are. We're as far north as D20. We're in Falcon. We have many classrooms on Fort Carson. So all over. West side, east. Yep.
You all are coming back into the main room. If you want to look in your chat box, we're going to throw some contact information for everybody that you've heard from tonight. Food to Power has their big event this Saturday. Tickets are available. There's the link. If you can't go now, maybe you can sponsor someone else or get involved afterwards. Here's our pro housing partnership and their website. You can reach out to Max and his group and Lori at CPCD. Head Start. There's ways to volunteer, get involved, sponsor a family for the holidays, become a part of their communities too.
I feel like I've seen Lynn before. I don't know why, but are you a teacher, Lynn? I don't know if I'm putting you on this.
No.
No? Okay.
Which Lynn?
Lynn Brown. I feel like
she's on she's on our executive committee, Lori. I don't know if you've ever
no
anything now.
Felt like it was from somewhere else. Okay.
I've been in a lot of different organizations. So.
Okay. May have seen you, run into you.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get back to a program real quick. Just to revisit who tonight's presenters were. Stephanie, if you just want to kind of give our thanks and revisit everybody. And then we'll get it back to Chandra for the closing.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for spending time with our presenters today. I don't have like an exit speech prepared. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it looks like we've got plenty of links and everything in the chat for getting involved with all these organizations. And yeah.
Want to take a minute to speak about yours too?
Yeah, I can a little bit. So I just recently finished up actually a housing ambassador program with the Justice Center of Colorado Springs, which is like an advocacy arm of the El Paso County Bar Association. They provide a lot of legal assistance, and it especially pertains to renters' rights because, as I'm sure many of you know, the law is heavily skewed towards property ownership in the state of Colorado and most of the country. But for our purposes, particularly in the state of Colorado, our state constitution skews so heavily towards property rights that there are a lot of things that we just simply cannot do legally, even at a local level, because of how aggressively capitalistic our state constitution is. So there are some things I'm working on in conjunction with my run for the state house and legislative goals that I have. And one of them that I did want to touch on a little bit before, before we kick it over to Chandra. So currently there is a statewide ban on any kind of rent control or stabilization, which means that even a city government like Colorado Springs, like even if we had the political will here, which we don't quite, but I think we will eventually, even if there was the political will here to say, pass some sort of ordinance that you can only raise rent by such a percentage every year unless there's a capital development on it or something like that, so that they can't just jack it up every year because they can in order to increase their profits. That actually is not even legal in the state of Colorado. There's a statewide ban on it. So that's something that we'd like to see changed, especially among a lot of other housing advocates. You know, I'm sure you've probably heard Max talk about it before as well. I wasn't in all the groups, but that's a major concern. And so, you know, as far as that goes, that's one of those things that we need our government to do. I think anytime the whole housing affordability issue comes up, and I go to a lot of town halls and whatnot, because I'm pretty plugged in with the political community here. Everybody's favorite opening line is, well, it's a really complicated problem and there's not a simple one fix. And we all know that, and we get that on some level. But I think the first starting point for all of us needs to be that our government has a role to play in this, and we cannot leave it up to the market to decide who does and doesn't deserve to have a roof over their head. Because the market will always decide that what is most profitable is the only thing that matters. And human beings have more values than that. So we need governments that care enough to get involved and aren't going to be afraid to wage that fight. So that means getting involved in our local elections. That means being ready for next year. It's a midterm. We don't want to be caught flat-footed. We have state races to win. We have county races to win. And public policy has to be on the side of people on some level to even tackle this in a meaningful way. So that is my soapbox. And yeah, thank you everybody for participating this evening, and helping to build coalitions around these issues that we're tackling in all of our neighborhoods. It's really nice to have you all here. I will drop my website in the chat as well. So take it away, Chandra.
Okay. I think what's coming up next, because I don't have the slide yet, is our different activism opportunities. We are looking for help with the tech team. Would really appreciate help if you are tech savvy and would like to help do these Zoom meetings or any other meetings. We're going to need help with Second Tuesday Showcase, precinct organizers, volunteer recruitment. You guys can read the slide. I'm not going to read it all for you, but definitely a lot of opportunities out there. So if you're interested, please contact the Democratic Party through the Gmail, or you can give us a call. Upcoming events. Take a look at our website. All of these slides will be on the website under Second Tuesday Archives. So if you're like, hey, I know I really needed something from, I heard him speak, I can't remember his name. This is the place to come to the archive site and take a look at it, because it will give you all the information you need. December Second Tuesday Showcase is Here Comes Santa Caucus. We will be getting out that information. We've got a couple of save the dates. It is Saturday, January 29th. We will have our gala and fundraiser. And then Saturday, March 5th is our caucus. Assembly will be following that. So definitely things that we've got coming up. So please make sure you look there. Really needing donations. We've got a lot of expenses coming up with caucus and assembly. So if you have a little bit extra to give, please throw it to the party. Monthly donors are greatly appreciated, and we just really need some help with what's happening next year. And here's our gala. It's coming. We'll get you more information as soon as everything is finalized. And we are going to turn off recording now and have open house conversations in case you have any other questions, or you just want to discuss what you're going through and see if we've got some kind of link to help. So thanks for being here. We appreciate you being here. Have a good night.
I'm just going to throw in, if you have missed our prior Second Tuesdays for this year, we have archived all of them. So even if it's not to go look at tonight's event, please go look at everything else we've done this year. We've had some amazing speakers, some amazing organizations we've gotten to learn more about, and maybe there's something that will spark an interest in you so you can help the rest of your community as well. Otherwise, happy holidays. This is Chandra and I's last one. We're going to help out in December, but we're going to hand off the baton at the end of the year to new folks for Second Tuesday. So thanks for being with us this year.
Thank you.